On inner space, on tradition and dependence. Conversation between Chiddu Krishnamurthy and Professor J. Needleman. In your talks, you have given a fresh meaning to the necessity for man to become his own authority. Yet, cannot this assertion easily be turned into a form of humanistic psychology without the reference to the sacred, transcendent dimension of human life on earth in the midst of vast intelligent cosmos? Must we not only try to see ourselves in the moment, but also as creature of the cosmos? What I am trying to ask about is this question of cosmic dimension. Krishnamurti, as soon as we use that word dimension, it implies space. Otherwise, there is no dimension. There is no space. Are we talking about space, outward space, endless space? Needleman, no. Krishnamurti, or the dimension of space in us? Needleman, it would have to be the latter, but not totally without the former, I think. Krishnamurti, is there a difference between the outer space, which is limitless, and the space in us? Or is there no space in us at all, and we know only the outer space? We know the space in us as a center and circumference. The dimension of that center and the radius from that center is what we generally call that space. Now, if there is a center, the space must always be limited, and therefore we divide the inner space from the outer space. We know only this very limited space, but we think we would like to reach the outer space, have immense space. This house exists in space, otherwise there could be no house, and the four wall of this room makes its space. And the space in me is the space which the center has created around itself, like the microphone. Little man, yes, center of interest. Krishnamurti, not only the center of interest, it has its own space, otherwise it couldn't exist. In the same way, human being may have a center, and from that center they create a space. The center creates a space around itself, and that space is always limited. It must be, because of that center, the space is limited. Little man, it is defined. Yes, it is defined space. Krishnamurti, when you use the word cosmic space, little man, I didn't use the word cosmic space. I said cosmic, the dimension of the cosmos. I wasn't asking about the outer space and the trip to the planet. Krishnamurti, so we are talking of the space which the center creates around itself, and also a space between two thoughts. There is a space, an interval between two thoughts, and the center having created that space around itself. There is space outside the limit. There is a space between thinking, between thought, and also a space around the center itself, and the space beyond the barbed wire. Now, what is the question, sir? How to expand the space? How to enter a different dimension of space? Needleman, not how to, but Krishnamurti, not how to. Is there a different dimension of space except the space around the center? Space, we are talking about that for the moment. We can use that word. First, I must see very clearly the space between two thoughts. This interval between two thoughts, The interval means space and what takes place in this interval. Gentleman, well, I confess I don't know because my thought overlap all the time. I don't know there are intervals. There are moments when this interval appears and I see it. There is freedom there for a moment. And the center having created that space around itself. There is space outside the limit. There is a space between thinking, between thought, and also a space around the center itself, and the space beyond the barbed wire. Now, what is the question, sir? How to expand the space? How to enter a different dimension of space? Gentlemen, not how to, but Krishnamurti, not how to. Is there a different dimension of space except the space around the center? Space, we are talking about that for the moment. We can use that word. First, I must see very clearly the space between two thoughts. This interval between two thoughts. The interval means space and what takes place in this interval. Gentlemen, well, I confess I don't know because my thought overlap all the time. I don't know there are intervals. There are moments when this interval appears and I see it. There's freedom there for a moment. Krishnamurti, let's go into this a bit, shall we? There is a space between two thoughts, and there is a space which the center creates around itself, which is a space of isolation. It is cutting itself off. I consider myself important with my ambition, with my frustration, with my anger, with my sexuality, my growth, my meditation, my reaching nirvana. Gentlemen, yes, that is isolation. Krishnamurti, it is isolation. My relation with you is the image of that isolation, which is that space. Then, having created that space, there is space outside the barbed wires. Now, is there a space of total different dimension? That is the question. How shall we find out if the space around me, around the center exists, and how can I find out the others? I can speculate about the other. I can invest my any space I like, but that is too abstract, too silly. So, is it possible to be free of the center so that center does not create space around itself, build a wall around itself, isolation, a prison, and call that space? Can that center cease to be? Otherwise, I can't go beyond it. The mind cannot go beyond that limitation. Gentleman, yes, I see what you mean. It's logical, reasonable. Krishnamurti, that is, what is that center? That center is the me and non me. That center is the observer, the thinker, the experiencer, and in that center is also the observed. The center says, that is the barbed wire I have created around myself. Gentlemen, so that center is limited there too. Krishnamurti, yes, therefore it separates itself from the barbed wire fence so that becomes the observed. The center is the observer. So there is space between the observer and the observed, right, sir? And the space is try to bridge over. That is what we are doing. It says, this must be changed. That must not be. This is narrow. This is wide. I must be better than that. All that is the movement in the space between the observer and the observed. Gentlemen, yes, I follow that. Krishnamurti. And hence there is conflict between the observer and the observed, because the observed is the barbed wire which must be jumped over. And so the battle begins. Now, can the observer, who is the center, who is the thinker, who is the knower, who is experience, who is knowledge, can that center be still? Little man, why should it wish to? Krishnamurti, if it is not still, the space is always limited. Little man, but the center, the observer, does not know that it is limited in this way. Krishnamurti, but you can see it. The center is the observer. Let's call him the observer for their movement. The thinker, the experiencer, the knower, the struggler, the searcher, the one who says, I know and you don't know, right? Where there is a center, there must be a space around itself. And when it observes through that space. When I observe those mountains, there is a space between me and the mountain. And when I observe myself, there is a space between me and the thing I observe in myself. When I observe my wife, I observe her from the center of my image about her, and she observes me with the image which she has about me. So there is always this division and space. Gentlemen, changing the approach to the subject entirely, there is something called the sacred teaching, sacred ideas, the sacred, which for a moment seems to show me that this center and this space you speak about is an illusion. Krishnamurti, wait, one has learned this from somebody else. Are we going to find out what is sacred then? Are we looking because somebody has told me that is sacred, or that there is sacred thing, or is it my imagination? Because I want something holy. Now, which is it? The desire for something holy? The imposition of my mind. The imposition on my mind by others who have said this is sacred, or my own desires, because everything is unholy and I want something holy sacred. All this springs from the center. We will find this out, what is sacred. But I don't want to accept tradition or what somebody has said about the sacred. Sir, I don't know if you have experimented. Some years ago, for fun, I took a piece of rock from the garden and put it on the mantelpiece, and played with it. Brought flowers to it every day. At the end of a month, it became terribly sacred. Little man, I know what you mean. Krishnamurti, I don't want that kind of phony sacredness. Sacredness is a fetish. So I won't accept anything that anybody says about what is sacred. Tradition as a Brahmin, One was brought up in a tradition which would beat anybody's traditions, I assure you. What I am saying is, I want to find out what is holy, not man made holiness. I can find out only when the mind has immense space, and it cannot have that immense space if there is center. When the center is not in operation, then there is vast space. In that space, which is part of meditation, there is something really sacred, not invented by my foolish little center. There is something immeasurably sacred, which you can never find out if there is center. And to imagine that sacredness is fully, you follow what I mean? Can the mind be free of this center, with its terribly limited yardage of space, which can be measured and expanded and contracted and all the rest of it? Can it? Man has said it can't, and therefore God has become the another center. So my real concern is this: whether the center can be completely empty. That center is consciousness. That center is the content of consciousness. The content is the consciousness. If there is no consciousness, then there is no content. You must work this out. Gentlemen, certainly, what we ordinarily mean by it. Krishnamurti, there is no house if there are no walls and no roof. The content is consciousness, but we like to separate them, theorize about it, measure the yardage of our consciousness. Whereas the center is consciousness, the content of consciousness, and the content is consciousness. Without the content, where is consciousness? And that is this space. Gentlemen, I follow a little bit what you say. I find myself wanting to say, well, what do you value here? What is important thing here? Krishnamurti, I'll put that question after I have found out whether the mind can be empty of the content. Then there is something else that will operate, which will function within the field of the known, but without finding that, merely to say, Gentleman, no, this is so. Krishnamurti, let's proceed. Space is between two thoughts, between two factor of time, two period of time, because thought is time, right? You can have dozen periods of time, but it is still thought. There is that space. Then there is that space around the center, and the space beyond the self, beyond the barbed wire, beyond the wall of the center. The space between the observer and the observed. This is the space which thought has created as image of my wife and the image of which she has about me. You follow, sir? All that is manufactured by the center. To speculate about what is beyond all that has no meaning to me personally. It's the philosopher amusement. I'm not interested. So my question is, can the center be still, or can the center fade away? Because if it does not fade away or lie very quiet, then the content of consciousness is going to create space within the consciousness and call it the vast space. In that there lie deception, and I don't want to deceive myself. I don't say I am not brown when I am brown. So can the center be absorbed? Which means, can there be no image because it has image that separates? That image talks about love, but the love of image is not love. Therefore, I must find out whether the center can be completely absorbed, dissolved, or lie as vague fragment in the distance. If there is no possibility of that, then I must accept my prison. I must accept there is no freedom. Then I can decorate my prison forever. Middleman. But now this possibility that you are speaking about without searching for it consciously. Krishnamurti. No, don't search for it. Middleman. I say without searching for it consciously. Life or something suddenly shows me it is possible. Krishnamurti. It is there. Life hasn't shown me. It has shown me when I look at the mountain that there is an image in me. When I look at my wife, I see that there is an image in me. That is a fact. It is not that I have to wait for 10 years to find about the image. I know it is there. Therefore, I say, is it possible to look without the image? The image is the center, the observer, the thinker, and all the rest of it. Middleman. I am beginning to see the answer to my question. I begin to see I am speaking to myself. I am beginning to see that there is no distinction between humanism and sacred teaching. There is just truth or non-truth. Krishnamurti. That's all. False or true? We are asking, can the consciousness empty itself of its content? Not somebody else to do it. Not divine grace, the upper self, some fictitious outside agency. Can the consciousness empty itself of all this content? First see the beauty of it, sir. Because it must empty itself without an effort. The moment there is an effort, there is the observer who is making the effort to change the content, which is the part of the consciousness. And I don't know if you see that. Middleman. I follow. This emptying has to be effortless, instantaneously. Krishnamurti. It must be. Without an agent who is operating on it, whether an outside agent or inner agent. Now, can this be done without any effort, any directive, which says, I will change the content? This means the emptying of consciousness of all will, to be or not to be. Look, what takes place. I have to put that question to myself. Nobody has put it to me because it's a problem of life, a problem of existence in this world. It's a problem which my mind has to solve. Can the mind, with all its content, empty itself and yet remain mind, not just float about? Middleman. It's not suicide. Krishnamurti. No. No, sir, that is too immature. I have put the question. My answer is I really don't know. I really don't know, but I'm going to find out. In the sense of not wanting to find out. The content of my consciousness is my unhappiness, my misery, my struggle, my sorrow, the images which I have collected through life, my God, the frustrations, the pleasure, the fear, the hatred, the agonies. That is my consciousness. Can all that be completely empty? Not only at the superficial level, but right through the so-called unconscious. If it is not possible, then I must live a life of misery. I must live in endless, unending sorrow. There is neither hope nor despair. I'm in prison. So the mind must find out how to empty itself of all the content of itself. and yet live in this world, not become a moron, but have a brain that functions efficiently. Now, how this is this to be done? Can it ever be done? Or is there no escape for man? Because I don't see how to get beyond this. I invent all the gods, temples, philosophies, ritual. You understand? This is meditation, real meditation, not all the phony stuff. I see whether the mind with all the brain which has evolved through time, which is the result of thousands of experience, the brain has functions efficiently only in the complete security. Whether the mind can empty itself and yet have a brain which function as a marvelous machine. Yet it see love is not pleasure, love is not desire. When there is love, there is no image. But I don't know what that love is. I only want love only as pleasure, sex, and all the rest of it. There must be a relationship between the emptying of consciousness and the thing called love, between the unknown and the known, which is the content of consciousness. Nettleman, I am following you. There must be the relationship. Krishnamurti, the two must be in harmony. The emptying and love must be in harmony. And it may only love that is necessary and nothing else. Nettleman, this emptying is another word for love? Is that what you are saying? Krishnamurti, I am only asking what is love? Is love within the field of consciousness? Nettleman, no, it couldn't be. Krishnamurti, don't stipulate. Don't ever say yes or no. Find out. Love within the content of consciousness is pleasure, ambition, and all that. Then what is love? I really don't know. I won't pretend any more about anything. I don't know. There is some factor in this which I must find out. Whether the emptying of consciousness with its content is love, which is the unknown. What is the relationship between the unknown and the known? Not the mysterious unknown, God or whatever name you give it. We will come to God if we go through this. The relationship between the unknown, which I don't know, which may be called love, and the content of consciousness, which I know. It may be unconscious, but I can open it up and find out what is the relationship between the known and the unknown. To move between the known and unknown is harmony, is intelligence, isn't it? So I must find out. The mind must find out how to empty its content. That is, have no image, therefore no observer. The images means the past, or the image which is taking place now, or the image which I shall project into the future. So no image, no formula, idea, ideal principle. All that implies image. Can there be no formation of image at all? You hurt me, or you give me pleasure, and therefore I have image of you. So no image formation when you hurt me or give me pleasure. Nettleman, is it possible? Krishnamurti, of course it is. Otherwise I am doomed. We are doomed. Is it possible when you insult me to be completely watchful, attentive, so that it does not leave a mark? When you flatter me, no mark. Then there is no image. So I have done it. The mind has done it. Therefore, there is no formation of image at all. If you don't form an image now, the past images have no places. Middleman, I don't follow that. If I don't form an image now, Krishnamurti, the past images have no place. If you form an image, then you are related to it. Middleman, you are connected to the past images. That is right. Krishnamurti, but if you don't form any, see it, then you are free from past. So the mind is empty itself of images by not forming an image now. If I form an image now, then I can relate it with past images. So consciousness, the mind can empty itself of all the images by not forming an image now. Then there is space, not space around the center, and if one dwells, goes into it much further, then there is something sacred, not invented by thought, which has nothing to do with any religion. Gentlemen, thank you. I have another question which I wanted to ask you. We see the stupidity of so many traditions which people hallow today. But aren't some traditions transmitted from generation to generation which are valuable and necessary, and without which we would lose the little humanity that we have now? Aren't there traditions that are based on something real which are handed down? Handed down? Middleman, way of living, even if there are, if only in external sense. Krishnamurti, if I hadn't been taught from childhood not to run in front of car, or be careful of fire, or be careful of irritating the dog which might bite you, and so on, that is also tradition. Gentleman, certainly it is. Krishnamurti, the other kind of tradition is that you must love. Gentleman, that is the other extreme. Krishnamurti, and the tradition of the weaver in India and other places. You know, they can weave without a pattern, and yet they weave in a tradition which is so deeply rooted that they don't even have to think about it. It comes out with their hand. I don't know if you have ever seen it. In India, they have tremendous tradition and they produce marvelous things. Also, there is the tradition of the scientist, the biologist, the anthropologist, which is tradition as the accumulation of knowledge handed over by the one scientist to the another scientist, by a doctor to another doctor, learning. Obviously, that kind of tradition is essential. I wouldn't call that tradition, would you? Gentleman, no, that is not what I had in mind. What I meant by tradition was way of living. Krishnamurti, I wouldn't call that tradition. Don't we mean by tradition some other factor? Is goodness a factor of tradition? Gentleman, no, but perhaps there are good tradition. Krishnamurti, good tradition, conditioned by the culture in which one lives. Good tradition among Brahmins used to be not to kill any human being or animal. They accepted that and functioned. We are saying, is goodness traditional? Can goodness function, blossom in tradition? Gentlemen, what I am asking then is, are there traditions which are formed by an intelligence, either single or collective, which understand human nature? Krishnamurti, is intelligence traditional? Gentlemen, no, but can intelligence form or shape a way of living which can help other men more readily to find themselves? I know that this is self-initiated thing that you speak of, but Are there not men of great intelligence who can shape the external condition for me, so that I will not have a quite as difficult a time to come to what you have seen? Krishnamurti, what does it mean, sir? What you say you know. I am talking about suppose you are the great person of tremendous intelligence and you say, my dear son, live this way. Needleman, well, I don't have to say it. Krishnamurti, you exclude your atmosphere, your aura, and then I say, I will try it. He has got it. I haven't got it. Can goodness flower in your ambience? Can goodness grow under your shadow? Nettleman, no, but I wouldn't be intelligent if I made those my conditions. Krishnamurti. Therefore, you are stating that goodness cannot operate function. Flower in any environment? Nettleman, no, I didn't say that. I was asking, are there any environment which can be conducive to liberation? Krishnamurti, we will go into it. A man who goes to a factory every day, day after day, and find release in drinks and all the rest of it. Nettleman, this is the example of poor environment, a bad tradition. Krishnamurti, so what does the man who is intelligent, who is concerned with the changing the environment, do for that man? Nettleman, perhaps he is changing the environment for himself, but he understands something about the man in general. I'm talking now about a great teacher, whatever that is. He helps, he presents a way of life to us which we don't understand, which we haven't verified ourselves, but which somehow acts on something in us to bring us a little together. Krishnamurti, that is satsang, which is the company of the good. It is nice to be in the company of the good because we won't then quarrel, we won't fight each other, we won't be violent. That is good. Nettleman, alright, but maybe the company of the good means I will quarrel, but I will see it more, I will suffer it more, I'll understand it better. Krishnamurti, so you want the company of the good in order to see yourself more clearly? Which means you depend on the environment to see yourself. Needleman, well, perhaps in the beginning. Krishnamurti, the beginning is the first step and the last step. Needleman, I don't agree. Krishnamurti, let's go into it a little bit. See what has happened. I go with good men because in that ambience, in that atmosphere, I see myself more clearly. Because they are good, I see my idiocies. Sometimes it happens that way. Nettleman, this is one example, right? Krishnamurti, or I am also good, therefore I live with them, then I don't need them. Nettleman, no, we don't need them then. Alright. Krishnamurti, if I am good, I don't need them, but if when I am not good and come to their presence, then I see myself clearly. Then to see myself clearly I must have them. This is what generally takes place. They become important. Not my goodness. This happens every day. Needleman, but is there not such a thing as weaning the baby by blackening the breast? It happens that I do need these men. Maybe in the beginning. Krishnamurti, I am going to question it. I want to find out. First of all, if I am good, I don't need them. I'm like those hills and bird which has no need. Needleman. Right, we can rule that out. Krishnamurti. When I'm not good, I need their company because in their company I see myself clearly. I feel a breath of freshness. Needleman. Or how bad I am. Krishnamurti. The moment I have a horror of myself in the large sense of the word, I am merely comparing myself with them. Needleman. No, not always. I can expose the image I have about myself as a lie. Krishnamurti. Now I am questioning whether you need them to expose yourself as a liar. Needleman. In principle, no. Krishnamurti. No, not in principle. Either it is so or it is not. Which means if I need them, then I am lost. Then I will forever hang on to them. Sir, this has happened since human relationship began. Needleman. Yes, it has. But it also happens that I hang on for a hang on for a while and then I write it. Krishnamurti. Therefore, why don't you, the good man, tell me, look, begin. You don't need me. You can watch yourself now clearly. Needleman. Maybe if I told you that, you would take it utterly wrongly and misunderstand me completely. Krishnamurti. Then what shall I do? Go on hanging them onto you? Run after you? No. Needleman. No. What shall you do? But what do you do? Krishnamurti. What they gradually do is run after me, run after him. Needleman. They generally do, yes. Krishnamurti. Then hold on to his skirts. Needleman. But this is perhaps because the teacher is not intelligent. Krishnamurti. No. He says, look, I can't teach you. My friend, I have nothing to teach. If I am really good, I have nothing to teach. I can only show. Needleman. But he does not say it. He does it. Krishnamurti. I say, look, I don't want to teach you. You can learn from yourself. Needleman. Yes, alright, suppose he says that. Krishnamurti. Yes. He says learn from yourself. Don't depend. That means you, being good, are helping me to look at myself. Needleman. Attracting you. Krishnamurti. No, you are putting me in a corner so that I cannot escape. Needleman. I see what you are saying, but it is the easiest thing in the world to escape. Krishnamurti. I don't want to, sir. You tell me. Don't depend, for goodness has no dependency. If you want to be good, you cannot depend on anything. On anything, external or inward. Don't depend on anything. It does not mean that don't depend on the postman. It means inwardly don't depend. That means what? I depend. He has told me one thing. Don't depend on me or anybody. Wife, husband, daughter, politician. Don't depend. That's all. He goes away. He leaves me with that. What shall I do? Needleman. Find out if he is right. Krishnamurti. But I do depend. I do depend on my wife, on the priest, on the some psychoanalyst. I do depend. Then I begin because he tells me the truth. You follow, sir? It is there. I have to work it out. So I have to find out if it is the truth or if it is a falsehood, which means I must exercise my reason, my capacity, my intelligence. I must work. I can't just say, well, he has gone. I depend on my cook. So I have to find out. I have to see the truth and the false. I have seen it. That does not depend on anybody. Even the company of good does not teach me. What is good, what is false or true? I have to say it. Absolutely. So, I don't depend on anybody to find out what is true or what is false.